Also, we could use some Uncle B in Studio B, and what do you know?
He was there.
We have that too. Blaine Fowler, a guy who played quarterback for BYU, was part of a national championship team, and was in Logan to watch everything unfold last night, joins us now. Blaine, thanks for waking up early on Saturday morning.
What's up, Blaine?
Hey, guys.
After a long trip home.
If my eyes are red, it's not because I was crying. It's because I only got a few hours of sleep. It was a long drive home. I feel bad for the players on those buses because, it was really, you talk about a long ride when you're not happy and you had a bad game. But then when the Department of Transportation decides to take I-15 and go down to one lane, so those buses
on the biggest weekend in Logan all year.
So I don't know, 30,000 people maybe driving home from Logan, and you get off from Brigham City and get onto I-15, and then you sit in traffic late at night. It took over 3 hours to drive home last night. And we were right behind the team buses. So
yeah, somebody sound the Price is Right loser horn right now.
I know. It was like,
bum, 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 bum.
It was rubbing salt in it. I'll tell you, it wasn't good.
Well, give us an idea of what it was like in that stadium as Bo Hodge gets hurt, and BYU has actually had a 14-point lead in that game, and then 7 turnovers happen, and the wagon wheel goes back to Utah State.
It was interesting because I talked to Micah Hanneman after the game on air, and his attitude was much like a lot of the guys that I talked to, and they said, we never felt like we couldn't come back and win that thing until the very last turnover. They felt like, we're going to overcome this. We're going to overcome this. We're going to overcome this. The defense just kept going out there and slugging it out, and I mean, it's hard to overcome a -2 in turnover margin night against anybody, let alone a -6.
-6?
-6 is just ridiculous. And
on the road.
I know. It's so it's very, very frustrating. And so I have to step back and look at it and say, what do I think about this football team? I would be more frustrated if they went up to Utah State and I thought, man, they just got pushed around by Utah State. Now what are they going to do? Like, they can't even compete physically with Utah State. Well, that's not the case. They manhandled Utah State. They beat the heck out of them on both sides of the line of scrimmage. After I watched the Wisconsin game, I went back and watched the film of the Wisconsin game, and I went, oh, man, we can't compete with those guys right now. If we played them 100 times, unless they were -6 in turnover margin.
On the road.
We probably wouldn't beat Wisconsin, but that's okay because I'm thinking, but that's the best football team I've seen come into LaVell Edwards Stadium in years and years and years, maybe ever, and it's a legit top 10 team. So that's okay. That's where BYU wants to be. I'm okay with that. But I wouldn't be okay if they went up to Logan. I'm not okay that they turned the ball over 7 times, but I would be really, really concerned if they went up there and they weren't physically better than that football team. I mean, BYU probably wins last night -3.
Aaron Jordan just said that.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying.
And so you think, wait, so BYU wasn't a better football team last night because Utah State was really opportunistic and they had takeaways. And you know what? Give them credit. They've done that 2 weeks in a row now. Is that going to be their identity? Are they going to be the team that flies to the football and knocks the ball to the ground? And that would be fantastic if they did. I root for Utah State when they're not playing BYU, obviously. So you got to give them some credit because this is 2 weeks that they've done this. But you also have to remember that BYU's playing their number 3 quarterback who hasn't had very many reps. I feel bad for Coy Detmer because that is a really difficult situation to be in. You've got a running back who's the feature guy who's not that far removed from a mission, who puts the ball on the ground a couple times, who, by the way, when he wasn't fumbling it, was dominating, just running over the top of people. BYU's offensive line was manhandling Utah State's up front. So I walk away from it and I go, okay, they got to clean it up. I get really discouraged when I feel like there's things that they can't fix. You can fix the pension to turn it over. You can work with Ula and say, hey, you got to have the point can't be coming out the back. The thing has to be high and tight. When you get in traffic, you have to go 2 hands. You can work with your number 3 quarterback who may now be your number 1 quarterback by getting him more reps and saying, don't throw it into here. Do you see what you did here? I mean, I really feel like Bo Hodge, from his last appearance to this appearance, was significantly better when he had a chance to be the guy for a couple of weeks and learn. He still threw a ball in on an interception that was a bad decision. And veteran quarterbacks are going to make a few bad decisions. But Coy was in a really, really difficult situation to not have the reps because they had to give the reps as many as they could to Bo to get him ready. And you're just rolling the dice that he's going to stay healthy, and then he doesn't. It's kind of a no-win situation. And so I look at it and I go, are the things fixable? Yeah, they can take care of turnovers. They can do a better job. And And it wasn't a physical thing. It wasn't that they weren't physically able to compete. And for the rest of the schedule, they match up just fine physically with Boise State. They can't turn it over and be -2 or 3. They don't match up so good with Mississippi State, so that they're going to have to go do to Mississippi State what Utah State did to them last night.
Good luck.
Good luck with that,
half
right?
of that.
But Mississippi State's got a really veteran quarterback that's going to take care of the ball, in Nick Fitzgerald. So it's you have got to go out and win the games now that you're supposed to win, where you'll be physically superior and you get to a bowl game, and that's what you play for. These guys will continue to grind. And, we just saw the quarterback depth chart if you're watching on television. And you didn't see it if you're listening on the radio. But that's my biggest concern is what are they going to do now? I would think the default is Coy's had the most reps. And so they've got to get him ready to play. And then we heard Kalani comment about last night about what do they maybe take Joe Critchlow's red shirt off?
Sounds like that's the direction they're going to go.
Yeah, so let's talk about what's on the table right now from a quarterback standpoint for BYU. There are, I believe, 4 options. 1, stick with Coy Detmer, who is your third stringer. 2, take Joe Critchlow off of his red shirt, which he was slated for the entire 2017 season, and give him a go against Boise State. Austin Kofensis running the Wildcat.
He's not Austin Kofensis is just a package guy. He's not a regular quarterback. Just so everybody knows, that's just a package.
They want to put Austin out on the field to take advantage of how unbelievably athletic he is, and we saw him
5 rushes, 23 yards,
and he turned the ball over.
Yes.
He put one on the ground after a big run, after he made a couple of people miss. But the idea with him was, let's use his athleticism, not to put a full package in for him and have him be the every down guy. That never was the plan. Outside of Bushman and fall camp, the most impressive person to me was Joe Critchlow, the biggest surprise.
Wow.
Where you go, whoa, where'd this guy come from? He seems to have poise. He's got good pocket presence. He can make every throw on the field. He seems to be a poised kind of a guy. But you wanted to be able to take him fresh off of a mission and redshirt him and have him develop. I really felt like he was a guy that could be the guy. He was a big star in fall camp. This last week, they wanted a little bit better look for the defense. They put him over and had him run the prep offense, and he was throwing the ball all over the place on BYU's defense.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, you walked in to our offices a couple of days before last night's game and said, hey, mark my words, Joe Critchlow's a player. He's a player.
And I didn't think we were going to be talking about maybe he has to be a player this year. I was just saying, man, I'm just watching this kid, and he's really skilled. It's too soon for him to have to play. You want to be able to season him. It was too soon for Coy to have to play last night.
So is Coy the guy against Boise?
I think he's. They didn't build a package for him last night. They built a package for Bo last night. So can they build some things? Can they get him out on the edges where he can see a little bit better? Going to get him in because I feel like Ty just barely made a change in his mind of what are we going to do offensively to take advantage of Bo Hodges' skill set, and I thought they did a good job of that. They put 21 points on the board, boom, boom, boom. But
14.
14. Yeah, true, 14. But they 7 we'll give to Micah, right?
Hey, 14 was more than your average.
Right.
9.8.
Right. And he looked comfortable out there, and he looked like he was in command. But they didn't build a package last night for Coy Detmer. And so now they have to build a package for him, and I think he's got the most experience. Maybe they take a look at Joe because they don't have to pull his redshirt year until he plays in a game, right? So they can say, let's take a good hard look at him this week in practice in the offense with the 1s and 2s. And if he's phenomenal and head and shoulders better, then you really have to take a serious look at it and maybe consider it.
Now, how about this as the 4th option? Talked about 3. Is there any way that Tanner Mangum is like, I've seen enough. I have just got to get on the field against Boise State. Is there any chance that he convinces his coaches to let him play against Boise State?
Convincing his ankles, right?
Yeah, he's pretty hobbled still, and he was in a boot. He threw in practice this last week. He had a big brace on. He had it taped up, so not very mobile. So he was just on the sidelines. He wasn't out running and dropping with guys flying around because they don't want. That would be a terrible thing for him to have somebody roll on his ankle. So he didn't let anybody near him. But over on the sideline, he was throwing to keep sharp, not putting a ton of weight on that. It's his front foot, so it's his stride foot, not his plant foot. Doesn't take as much pressure. But he just it's too early for him right now. Does he have a miraculous improvement this week? The thing about high ankle sprains is you just don't know. Like how long they're going to take. Could he feel better and play this week? I mean, there's possibility he could, but there's also possibility it could linger on for another couple of weeks. And so you can't plan on that. Tanner's a competitor. I wouldn't be surprised if he says, hey, just tape this thing up. I'll go play with a club foot.
Seems like he would say that.
Yeah, and so but you want to make sure he's healthy. You want to err on the side of him being healthy because he can be your guy for a long time. But so that's the biggest issue for me. And it's about not turning the football over because the defense is good enough to keep them in the game next week against Boise State, and they just have to get enough offense to help out. And I thought that they had that in control. When they were up 21-7, I was going, this is going to be a 50-14 football game. That's how dominating they looked.
Yeah, Utah State under 300 yards of total offense.
Yeah. So
with all those extra turnovers.
Yeah, when you look at it, typically when I see a 40-point score, I associate that with 500 yards plus of total offense. When you put 40 on the board, you get 500 yards.
I don't associate it with 3.9 yards per play.
No. And BYU, with almost 396 yards of total offense, you typically don't get to 400 yards when you turn it over 7 times. So when BYU wasn't turning it over, they were pretty efficient. They manhandled people at the line of scrimmage. They were getting big chunks of yardage. They told us, Ty told us in the pregame that he was going to attack that Utah State defense, that they were going to go over the top. We saw one of the best catches I've seen in a couple of years.
Oh, Bo Tanner.
And
awesome.
Bo Tanner's, I think that was the #1 play in SportsCenter.
It was last night.
So
there's a positive.
A blocked field goal kick as well.
Yep.
Hey.
So I thought, yeah, the offense took strides forward last night in terms of every down execution, and they took a huge step backward in ball security.
Yeah.
So you can't have both. So against Boise State, with a quarterback situation unsettled, can they take care of the football and then continue to expand that run game like they did last night? That's the key. I still think this is a good defensive football team.
Now, what's interesting is BYU comes home in 2010, 1-4, against a San Diego State team that I believe won 9 games that year and was pretty stinking good, flirting with the rankings, and found a way to beat them just by ball control and ball security and #ReplayGate.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a minute.
Exactly.
What?
But
I still hear about that when I'm down like in San Diego doing a basketball game. They go, yeah, your guys, we got ripped off of there.
There's more to that story, and it wasn't. Come on.
24-21, BYU wins that game. Is there any way that BYU can do that against Boise State?
I would not be surprised if BYU beats Boise State this week. It's about turnovers. They look good enough. They're good enough defensively to keep them in a game.
Yeah.
And people say, they gave up 40 points last night. Hey, let's call it like it is. The offense gave up a bunch of points last night.
Truth.
Because they made the defense defend short fields. They gave up 2 pick sixes. The offense gave up a bunch of points
Which
last
is why
night.
Kalani said at halftime, offense, don't screw it up. The
Right.
defense can stop them.
You lose by
288 yards of total offense. If they hold Boise to 288 yards of total offense, now I think Boise's better than Utah State, so you're going to have to pick it up some. But it really is about managing turnover margin and taking care of the football. And maybe they come out and just pound the rock next week against Boise State.
Let's end with this. BYU is playing Boise State and Mississippi State. The likelihood is that BYU will lose those games unless they really bring it in some way, which they can, but they'll need to do that. If BYU is 1-6, they probably need to win the next 6 to be 7-6. If you're 6-7, there's an APR. We need some teams.
Hey, we had 5 and 7 teams go last year.
So chances are you getting into a bowl game, but maybe not. Is BYU going bowling if they go 1-6?
I say they do because I think we'll be like we were last year, where there won't be enough teams to fill it.
And then you're just in. But BYU will have to win at least 5 games.
Yeah, and
the last 6.
And the back end of the schedule are against teams where BYU. Now they were last night. They should be physically dominating. They were physically dominating last night.
And hopefully you have your first or second string quarterback playing.
And you don't turn it over. I mean, -6. When's the last time a BYU team was -6? I didn't do the research.
2011 against Utah.
They were -6.
54-10 loss.
Yeah, and they were -6. And Utah was as good or better than they were physically that year. And so that's why the even bigger margin. But, yeah, they will be better physically than the whole back end of that schedule. So if they can take care of the football, they should be able to go on a roll. So it really is about ball security here moving forward. Now, ball security is not going to win them a game against Mississippi State. Ball security will keep them in the game against Boise State, and they could have a chance to win it. Mississippi State, they're going to have to not only have ball security, they're going to have to make Mississippi State get a little loose with the football.
Yeah, be +3.
They're going to have to be +3 to go down there. But then the rest of the schedule, they just need to be taking care of the football, and they should be able to win all of those games.
Great
BYU
stuff,
was
Blaine.
-5 in the 2011 game.
Oh, -5.
It wasn't even -6.
So they were -5 in that game.
It wasn't even -6.
So -6 is there have they ever been -6?
There got to be some game at some point.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
I don't know. Paging Greg Wrubell.
Yeah, Greg
Texas
will-
A&M
Greg will find that for us.
1990 Holiday Bowl.
Greg
I
will
know.
find that for us.
Blaine, great stuff, man. We appreciate you coming
Thanks, guys.
in and talking through this with us.
They're physically okay. Mentally, boy, they need a MASH unit right now mentally.